very good afternoon to everyone. Wonderful session. I think I really enjoyed the session earlier by the ladies, and I think great discussion around. Once again, afternoon. I'm honored to be on the this particular event this time. It's of Business World's fourth edition Festival of Fintech, and I think on a keynote side, though I'm probably to touch upon the fintech innovation in India. But since I come from the government, I do a lot of work with the digital infrastructure. I do a lot of work with startups and ecosystem. I'll try to share some insight around that. I think we all know, and I think we are sitting in this room for the Festival of Fintech. We all know very well that the past decade, has been the great technological progress has happened. The innovations around the fintech have been happening at the forefront of everything, whatever we are doing, right? It has changed the way we look into things, the way we interact with our ecosystem right now. I think the rapid digitalization, which earlier session talked about, and with the focus on the customer, changing customer preferences and solutions around that, I think there is a lot which is, as a government, as a regulator, as the ecosystem we have been able to achieve, right? In the today's modern economy perspective, let's put, in particularly, it's important that, to understand while we have achieved a lot, but these changes have happened because of the foundational journey which happened and which began way back in 2012 and 2013. The foundational journey which I'm talking about is all about the digital public infrastructure, which we call within the government. I think the focus around the digital public infrastructure, the focus around the ensuring that everybody, who's citizen of India has an access to the bandwidth, has an access to be connected with the ecosystem through their smartphones and to the connectivity. But more important is what they can really achieve with that. And I think the game changer has been the advent of what we call as the digital identity, because for any digital transformation to happen, I think that there are three key pillars which are very important. The first pillar is being the identity, the second pillar being the data exchange, which was touched upon in the previous session. And the third pillar is all about what you can do in terms of the interactions on those infrastructure. I think as a country, we have achieved a humongous feat in terms of the digital identity platform which we have built. And again, a lot of this was built by somebody who led from this particular city. And I think Nandan Nilekani, we should salute him in terms of his vision, what he actually did in terms of not just creating a platform which is now seen as the platform of the world, platform of the future, because it has been able to bring in 1.3 billion people on the identity aspect, right? And it is not just the identity part which has been enabled, but the services on top of that. And I think the services which we have seen so far, in terms of the infrastructure which is in the form of know your customers, for example, it's able to prove my identity with a very easier way of accessing it. And that has resulted in the transformation in which the payment infrastructure has really happened. I think what happened in 2016 with the unified payment interfaces is as a game changer in terms of what we look forward right now, right? It's a game changer because we are sitting in when we are sitting today, we are witnessing a huge amount of digital transaction in the form of digital payments, right? And I think if I go back with the numbers which happened in May, we've already touched 450 million digital transactions on a daily basis. There's a huge amount of transactions which are happening, and we are not very far that we will probably, the next 2 years, will be a 1 billion digital payment transactions will be very easily possible. And it's just about the amount and transactions which are happening, but the value of transaction is also going up. And the reason the value of transaction has already touched almost 66,000 crore on a daily basis. Now, for the 5 seconds which I've just spoken on digital payment, there have been almost 25,000 transactions has already happened. Probably few crores of money has already transferred, and that's the power which we have as a country we have built in. And this power, what we have built, has been possible again. But I think what is more important to celebrate is the whole story of the India Stack. India Stack is not just about enabling payments, but India Stack is also now enabling the data exchange, right? I think an Ayushman mission which has happened within the government itself, there is a huge amount of data exchanges happening in terms of the health information, health data, which is exchanging from very easily from a provider of the health services to the person who needs his who needs to access his own advices, for example, right? And just not the health infrastructure. We are already sitting where we have seen the open network for digital commerce, and the ONDC itself is going to be a game changer. It is already operational in so many cities. It has opened up the e-commerce sector like anything, because now it's very easy to participation from each and every player, and that's what's impossible because we are building the ecosystem, building the infrastructure which can serve billion of people, and that's what is happening. And I think sooner or later we have already shown the progress from the account aggregator platform. We have shown the progress from the from the OSINT platform. I think all these are the ones where lot of the decade has seen the demonstration of what is possible, but the next decade actually will be more focused in terms of what new innovations can really happen. If we specifically talk about, from the fact that, the fintech ecosystem, it's not about just the platforms which in the form of the digital public infrastructure, but also the advent of technology has led to many solutions which were probably hitherto not known earlier. And when I talk about solution, it's important to keep in mind frame that the solutions which are available for masses. For example, right now, I think wealth management was a very niche service which were only available to very few. But with the use of technology today, with the use of a lot of startups which have come in the space of robo-advisory, I think wealth management as a service has been enabled to lot many people and the masses of when you talk about, right. But we also need to ensure, I think one of the angles which were touched upon previously, when you talk about so much of data exchange, there is a requirement of trust and efficiency, and how the trust and efficiency can be built in together. And I think within STPI, we also look into, and within the Ministry of Electronics and IT, we also look into how do we support various startup ecosystem which are working across these technology spectrum, for example, right? We have a center of entrepreneurship which is focused on blockchain. And the reason why we are focused on blockchain, because blockchain brings in such transformative power to enable such trust. And it is not around the digital infrastructure or the payment infrastructure or within the fintech ecosystem, but across everywhere. The example which was quoted earlier in terms of what can happen in the agri-finance space, right? But imagine the trust which is, when that particular trust of farm produce, happening somewhere in India, being sold outside somewhere in, Middle East, right? The trust part of what is actually being produced and what is being sold I think the trust part will be enabled much more and much efficiently with the advent of the blockchain and the use of blockchain, right? I think in terms of very specifically of the innovations which we have seen and why we are seeing this is such a huge amount of transactions which are happening is because of some small innovations as well. And I would like to talk about one particular innovation which actually happened within India and again built on the Aadhaar stack, which was called as Aadhaar enabled payment system, right? Now, the power of AEPS is basically to reach out to the people who are not yet connected through their smartphones or through the banking ecosystem, right? Now, through AEPS, it's so easy right now from a government perspective. For example, if you want to send out the money to people sitting somewhere in far-flung village area who doesn't have an access through smartphones, right? And through APS, he can actually receive the credits and can take out the credits as well, right? So that's something innovation which has happened, and that's when we talk about the real innovation, because the real innovation is all about for the innovation which can actually go to the bottom of the pyramid, right? And I think if we talk about from the fact that what can further happen, I think there is the next decade, for example, right? Next decade, again, a lot of things around the next decade will happen. When we look into what we can do together, I think the digital public infrastructure is a real example of what can be built collaboratively. It was not built within an ecosystem within the government. It was built with the financial institutions together. It was built with the customers being the primary focus. It was built on top of the banking ecosystem, which already enabled multiple accounts to millions of accounts to millions of people already, right? So I think when we look into collaboration and we look into the partnerships, that's when we probably will be able to bring in a lot of new changes and a lot of new innovations. One of the things which we need to also think about, I think if this particular trend of the last decade did not happen, right? I think today we are hailing. I think the funding ecosystem is all about talking about the various companies around the quick commerce, the ride-hailing companies, or a pure play delivery of company startups. I think all of these companies have been the beneficiary of what has really happened within the digital payment infrastructure and digitalization in particular, right? But let me also tell you, a lot of digital payment infrastructure on its own is nothing if these startups or these entrepreneurs would not have innovated. the speed in which things have actually happened is because it goes mutually, right? Whatever is being built today, unless that was exploited by the innovators and entrepreneurs, it was not easily possible to see the transformation journey which we have seen in India. Today, India as a country, we are already, in terms of digital transaction, we are world leader. I think in terms of transaction, in terms of value as well as volume, we are the leaders there. I think we are far ahead from, let's say, China or US to any other middle income countries or low income countries, for example, right? And but what we look forward also, I think the next decade, when we look into the last decade, which is primarily being seen as a hyper growth decade, especially in the fintech, right? For the next decade, it's important, and that's what we also tell a lot of startups and entrepreneurs. The next decade is not about just the hyper growth. It's also about the slow and steady growth, but the growth which is built around the sustainability, the growth which is built on the value creation. And I think that is very important for all of us to understand, all of your entrepreneurs to understand. When we look forward the next decade, we look forward the innovations which we build. We are not running behind just the growth parameters. We are not behind just the numbers, but we are also building a sustainable business on its own, because the money, especially the funding money, is not going to be easily coming on your way. What is also important, and again, this we take it from just not the fintech industry, but we look around everywhere. I think we need to understand the decade has been known for innovation, and hence the culture of innovation has to be kept still in mind. The culture of having a team which is flexible enough, because the curve of technology changes very, very fast, and unless you are continuously innovating, continuously on top of on the technology hype and technology curve, it's going to be it's probably difficult at some point of time to keep on to maintain the momentum in which you are already there. Again, I think this is just small examples. Within the fintech space, for example, right? I think it's again when we compare the fintech industry today with the traditional banking ecosystem, the gap is still very, very huge. But the next couple of years, I think next 5 years, if I'm not wrong, a lot of big four companies are talking about that the fintech industry in particular, right, will grow at least 3 times faster than the traditional banking sector. And when it grows 3 times faster, then you can imagine the opportunity which is still lying ahead. A lot of things have been achieved, but there's still a lot of opportunity which is way ahead for each one of you. I think the tailwinds which we are witnessing right now are tailwinds which are clearly signs of further growth in the fintech ecosystem. I think last but not the least, when we within the government now talk about Viksit Bharat mission, we talk about the vision of being developed country by 2047. It's important that this vision, and especially this vision of developed country or developed nation, is not possible unless we are able to think of solutions which can bring in financial stability to everyone. When I mean everyone, I mean 1.4 billion people altogether. And financial stability actually means the social security element, access to health to everyone, probably access to insurance for everyone. I think that's what we're looking forward to. These are the areas in which we as a country we still need to innovate, and we look forward to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because this is the ecosystem which has actually has given a lot of solutions in past, and I'm sure this will happen. STPI, and especially the Ministry of Electronics and IT, through its own tech startup ecosystem initiative, we're also an ecosystem player. We heard in the previous session, there are a lot of ecosystem players, and with STPI and MIT being the pan-India STPI ecosystem for the tech startups, we look forward and support 1,000+ startups as I speak today, and I lead that initiatives within STPI. We have built in multiple centers of entrepreneurships, which are focused on bringing excellences out in the space like fintech, in the space like agri-tech, in the space like mobility or e-mobility in particular, right? Or exploiting the solutions around the AI or blockchain or machine learning. I think if any one of you looking forward, then I think STPI will be able to support you. All typically we bring in 360-degree support. right from the mentoring to the funding. So we have 1,200 startup portfolio right now. We have invested on 200 plus startups as I speak today, and I think this is just the beginning in terms of what together we can achieve. So thank you once again for inviting me here. I know it was a keynote, but the idea was here to meet and everyone and learn from the fintech ecosystem. I think the fintech ecosystem is something which we within STPI, within MITI, within the government, we also want to ensure continuously learn and continuously evolve from that. And thank you once again. Thank you for inviting me here.